Tom?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
I can't complain. Can't
Where are
complain.
you?
Right now I'm in Dallas.
You're in Dallas.
Yep, yep. What about you?
I am in Las Vegas.
Oh,
Because there's the Nevada caucus is a week from Saturday.
okay. You're at the university. Are you gonna be doing that?
No, I am. God alone knows what I am doing. Everything, as far as I can tell.
Okay, Joe.
It is crazy. It is really crazy.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Kiana, you want to kick us off? Okay, we're going to keep it moving. She's having mic troubles.
Okay.
So why don't we start with a round of introductions? I introduced myself already, Tom, so I'm going to kick it off to Nife.
Hey, my name is Nife Olufosoye. I'm the organizing director with Black Futures Lab, and you already know, formerly NextGen state director in Wisconsin.
You also have Kiana Gregory here, and she is our political director for the Black to the Future Action Fund. She's working on getting her mic together, but let's kick it over to you, Tom, to introduce yourself.
Okay, so Alicia, the way it was described to me is I should start with about 3 minutes.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, before you do that, just introduce yourself first. I'll tell you a little bit about the Action Fund and then give your opening statement.
So my name's Tom Steyer. I'm running for president. I have spent the last 10 years as a grassroots activist, both in terms of running propositions, fighting for progressive causes, and creating Next Gen America, which is a specific grassroots organization focused on young people, with a focus within that on Black young people, and also working with national unions going door to door. Just as some quick numbers, we've knocked on over 25 million doors with the unions in the last 2 cycles. We registered over 1.3 million people, mostly people of color, in 2016, and we were on 420 campuses in 2018. So we've done, I think we're the largest youth voter organization in the country, and we've run campaigns against corporations for 10 years without ever losing.
Excellent. Excellent. So we are the Black to the Future Action Fund, and the work that we do is about making Black communities powerful in politics. We believe that the challenges that are facing Black communities are incredibly complex, and to address those challenges, we need to invest in innovation and experimentation, but most of all, we have to invest in building Black political power. And so the Action Fund is really focused on supporting, enriching, and engaging Black candidates who have a progressive vision for how to advance Black America. And in this presidential cycle, we are focused on identifying a presidential candidate who has the best interests of Black communities in mind. And so that is the kind of basis of this conversation. And this conversation will inform the endorsement that the Black to the Future Action Fund does. And it will be the first presidential endorsement that we have embarked upon. So thank you for being our inaugural interview. And with that, it would be wonderful to get a sense from you of your core values and your vision for America, and how that aligns or diverges from the policy priorities that we've expressed in our Black agenda for 2020.
So what I'd like to do, Alicia, is talk a little bit in front about how I feel about race and how it fits into policy discussions, then a little bit about what I've done over the last couple decades, and then talking about some more specific policies. So let me say this. I don't know if you guys were listening to the debate in New Hampshire a week ago, but basically 2/3 through it, I said, look, we cannot have this debate as Democrats without talking about race.
That's right.
It is impossible to talk about virtually any policy area in the United States without recognizing that there is a unspoken but incredibly important subtext of race. And unless we talk about it explicitly, we are not going to solve the underlying problem. I also said I am the person on this stage who is for reparations. I believe that out of narrative comes policy, and I would start a solutions-based formal commission on race on the first day of my presidency to retell the story of the last 400 plus years of African Americans in the United States, both from the standpoint of telling the story of systematic, legal prejudice, discrimination, and injustice, but also of contribution, specifically contribution, not just about building America, but including building America, but also about the moral leadership the Black community has provided for this entire country for generations and centuries. And that with telling that story about how we got here, then we talk about solutions to how we go forward from here and repair the damage that's been done. That's my opening statement. I want to say that these issues are not just words or policies for me. I've been working on this for decades, long before I was thinking about running for president. So 15 years ago, my wife and I started a community bank from scratch, debt specifically designed to economic justice, environmental sustainability, and to support businesses owned by Black people, Latinos, and women. It's over $1.1 billion now. We have provided over $116 million in affordable housing loans. We've supported over 8,500 affordable housing units. We have supported dozens of Black-owned businesses and even bought a Black community bank, which was in trouble in Portland, to make sure that it could keep going. As you guys know, our youth organizing has a specific part of it called Black Lives Rising. We try and be on HBCUs. We specifically organize it. Nife knows about that specifically, and it was run by a guy named Jeremiah Chapman that a bunch of you guys may know. I have worked in California to end cash bail, which doesn't have, it has a huge racial subtext to it. I've worked to end automatic sentence enhancement. Both of those things happened. We've worked in Florida very hard because we organize in Florida to make sure that formerly incarcerated people get back their voting privileges. In fact, the biggest support we've ever given in a primary or a general election to anyone running for office in the United States was Andrew Gillum, who we thought would be a transformational candidate for the United States of America. Obviously, that was the biggest disappointment we had of 2018 in the context of a lot of good things. We have also, my wife and I started a program in California called California Food for California Kids, which is farm to table in the public schools that serve 300 million meals, a way to get healthy food to kids who are on free and reduced lunch. And it's basically, to us, if a kid isn't fed, then how could you expect them to be healthy? How could you expect them to perform in school? It's actually what the thing that makes me the happiest in the world is the idea that we're actually giving healthy food to kids. And if you ever go and see it, it'll make you cry, I promise. Mm-hmm. You should know that our campaign staff is over half people of color. It's over half women, and it's 30% LGBTQ. And that is what I would expect any organization. Our bank is probably, every one of those statistics, probably higher. That is what I would expect of any organization, including an administration that I had. Just so you know. In terms of specific policies, we have an HBCU policy, which is $125 billion over 10 years. It's multiples of anybody else. I said, I think policy comes out of narrative, understanding the role that HBCUs play, how critical they are, how successful they've been, how starved for money they are. $125 billion is a statement that we want this to not just continue, but to thrive and grow and to provide the same kind of lifeline that it has, but even more so. That's $35 billion in the first year and $10 billion every other year. Just so you know, I think HBCUs get from the federal government around $300 million. So in a normal year, this would be 30 times more, and in the first year, it would be 100 times more. If you look at our overall economic strategy, we call it people over profits. We'd undo all the income tax gifts to rich people and big corporations. We'd institute a wealth tax. I've said that long before I was running for president. We have a dramatically unfair tax policy, and I would also treat investment income on the same schedule that we treat earned income. There's no reason for it not to be. It's crazy that it isn't. And if you do those things, I would give a 10% tax cut to everybody who makes less than $250,000. So there's a tax cut for middle-class people involved in this. In fact, for everybody who doesn't make more than $250,000. I would also push the minimum wage really hard. The minimum wage is $7.25, and if you just inflation adjust the 1980 minimum wage to be $11, if you included the increased productivity of American workers and split it with employers, it'd be $22. For 40 years, working people have been screwed. That's a measure of how screwed they've been. $7.25 national minimum wage versus 22, which is the actual fair one. No kidding. I did those numbers myself. The other thing you should know is I'm a huge union supporter. Every single campaign I've run, and we've taken on all the big companies, and we've never lost. We're never going to lose because they're so dumb. But we've taken them on and beaten them with union support in every single case. And I really believe that there has been an attempt to take away the power of unions as a way of taking away the power of working people. And I believe that if we do the climate program I'm talking about, we will have the highest percentage. We'll create over 4.5 million good paying jobs throughout the country, 4.5 biggest work program in American history. And we'd have the highest percentage of union workers since 1945. Specifically, let me say, I was saying to you, and I could go policy by policy, and you're going to ask me questions, but let me say, I'm a climate bug. I know we have to do this. We can do it in terms of creating these jobs, but we call our plan a justice-based climate plan. The reason we've never lost on climate is we start with environmental justice. We start in the communities that you can't breathe or drink the water. They're black and brown. I've been to them. I know the people. If you ask me who is my crew in terms of climate, and I've been working on this for over a decade, my crew is the environmental justice.
Is he frozen?
Yeah, I think we might have like a slight connection issue.
Okay. All right.
Back up a little bit.
All right. Kiana, while we're waiting, do you want to test your mic? Okay, you got it.
Am I back?
Okay, you're back.
Sorry about that. So I was just talking about environmental justice.
That's right. And starting with the most impacted communities.
And let me say this, if you look at who our crew is on climate and the environment,
yeah.
Our crew is Harold Mitchell from Orangeburg, South Carolina. He probably has the most amazing environmental justice project in the United States for the last 20 years. He's brilliant. Deanna Barry, who was leading the fight down in Denmark, South Carolina against bad water. Eduardo Garcia from the Coachella Valley, who's probably the most important environmentalist in California, but no one's ever heard of him. But he is in such a poor district that it qualifies for Doctors Without Borders. Vien Trong. Do you know her, Nife? Who is a woman from Oakland.
I know Glenn. Yep. Who used to work with Green for All.
Correct. She used to, after Van left, she ran Green for All.
That's right.
Yes. So that's our crew. You know, if you look and see who writes our programs, who we talk to, who goes out and we go on the road with, that's who. We believe that if you start with environmental justice and those communities and those leaders, you get the right policy, you get the right outcome. And I'm just saying climate because I started by saying every single policy area has this gigantic unspoken racial part to it. And people always go like, oh, you mean criminal justice? It's like, I do mean criminal justice. That's why I talked about pushing to end cash bail and to, have much more flexible sentencing. But the whole criminal justice system from start to finish has a gigantic racial bias to it. Gigantic. But so does housing.
That's right.
I mean, I was, redlining for generations. So does education. I'm a huge education bug, and I view it as justice and mobility, as well as, education and prosperity.
That's right.
Every single thing. And I use climate because people think that's a science issue. It's not a science issue. It's a people issue. And you have to start with the communities that are most affected, which are Black and brown. And I also say to people, I love to say to white environmentalists, the media doesn't understand who really the environmentalists in this country are. Latinos, Black people, Asian Americans, and Native Americans. Every time I say that, a Native American just whacks me over the head because they're true environmentalists, and they're right. So anyway, it's every single policy area. One of the reasons I'm for term limits is I want to get different people in charge. The point of the bank is to support people so they own businesses. I want to have a minimum wage that's fair. I want a living wage. I want unionization. I want people to be treated fairly. But it's also about control. New people in charge, term limits, new people in charge, different people in charge. Same thing is true at the bank. Is that, I was in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago talking just to a Black audience, and a 75-year-old, very well-dressed, distinguished guy said, are you aware they just moved the Raiders from Oakland to Las Vegas and built Raiders Stadium?
These are sensitive issues, Tom. Sensitive.
I know, Alicia, I'm from the Bay Area.
We feel it.
I know you do. Yeah. And he said, but in building that stadium, only 1% of the contracts went to Black-owned companies. And he said, what do you think about quotas? And I said, what do I think about quotas? I think there is a quota. There's a quota right now, 100% to the insiders. Yes. And, people always, when you start to change things, it's like, whoa, that's a quota. That's not fair. It's like, hold on for a second. What's happening right now isn't fair.
That's right.
Yeah.
So let's get into the next part of
our next question is, based on your perspective and experience, is there anything in the agenda which feels unrealistic or perhaps misses the mark that you would like to speak more about, or just share your thoughts on, and on how we can rethink our approach?
How you're thinking your approach?
Or rethink the approach. Is there anything within the agenda that you feel is unrealistic or perhaps misses the mark that you want to speak more to, or you want to share your thoughts on?
No, I actually, as you know, I've been very supportive of you guys, both individually and as an organization. I'm a gigantic, look, I believe that what you guys are doing is not just the right thing, but might be the critical thing in 2020. I believe that the Black community as a group, I wasn't just being polite about moral leadership. I believe to a large extent, the African-American community is choosing the next president. Honest to goodness, you guys. And I've been saying that for a year before I was running for president. It's like, it isn't just the numbers of people who vote. I believe that there's a moral weight to those votes that's differential. And, I always say I mean it, Nife. I always say to people when they ask me about foreign policy and they say, who do you respect? How can you possibly do this job? I say, look, first of all, the person who was right on the Iraq War was a junior state senator from Illinois who had no foreign policy experience, but was right. And all the foreign policy people in DC were wrong. But the person who was right about giving, unlimited anti-terrorist powers to George W. Bush, no senators, one congressperson. Barbara Lee.
That's right.
And I always say, you know what? It's not a fluke. Bravest person, smartest person, wisest person turned out to be this unknown congresswoman from Oakland, California, who I adore.
Yeah.
It's like she came through when no one else came through.
That's right.
I know it. Right. I would say it as much as possible because I don't think Barbara gets her due.
She does not get her due, which leads us into a conversation about governance. So for us at the Black to the Future Action Fund, we believe that how one governs is equally as important as the policies that they espouse. And so please tell us about your political philosophy and how your approach to governance by and for the people is beneficial for Black communities.
Okay.
And if you could, in your answer, share an example of your current work to involve Black communities in the decisions that impact our lives and in the influencing and vetting of policies that impact our lives.
Well, let me say this, and I'm somebody who's a grassroots person. So, we've said our climate policy is going to start by going to the grassroots and asking people what they want. I'm not a top-down person. I'm fighting the top-down because I think the top-down's elitist. So let me say, I think you start with a conscious awareness of diversity. I was just saying to you the point about how Raider Stadium got built. That just can't happen. You don't get diversity unless you seek diversity and are aware of it. And so if you look at our bank staff, there's a conscious awareness that every single job has to be considered from the standpoint of who it is. And if you don't get diversity, then you're failing. So you're asking me how we do it. That's one point. I believe unless you're seeking diversity, and I gave you our staff of our campaign, the bank's more so. And I believe that it's not just justice-based, although it is justice-based, it's also how you make the best decisions. When I think about criminal justice, policing is the first place where you see real racial bias. And I'm a huge believer in community-based policing because I think people understand each other better when they live there and when they're part of a community and they understand the people. Having people come in from outside Oakland to police Oakland makes no sense. And that's what we've seen all over the country. Secondly, so first of all, I believe in diversity in terms of if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, the old political saying. But I also believe in grassroots, that you start in making decisions not by imposing them, but by having the conversation with the people who are on the ground who have the most information about their own lives. And so when I talked about, people have said to me repeatedly about reparations, well, okay, what's the answer? What's the answer? And I said, look, here's an answer, which is HBCUs. I can show you 5 other maybe answers, but I'm not the person who's going to answer this question. We have to have the conversation. Like, I can't go to Kiana and Alicia and Nifi and say, here's what we're doing. That's not going to happen. We're going to sit down and maybe we're going to go around the country and talk to people. And in fact, I ran something in California called the Fair Shake Commission about inequality in California, studying it, what the causes were. And there are a couple big conclusions, one of which is you can't talk about inequality in California without talking about race and ethnicity. Can't do it. It's ridiculous. But we went to every single community. We brought people in. We had the people from the commission who are mostly, some academics, some activists, but we asked people in every community for the information because the idea of people in DC thinking they know more about Oakland, California than the people of Oakland is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So in every instance, and it's a perfect example in terms of climate, we go and ask, in terms of housing, we've gone to ask, in every case, the point is to sit down with people in the community and ask them what's important to them so that you understand while you're making decisions, you're actually doing it together and that you're the people who know the most have real input, because otherwise you're going to be doing something that's kind of silly. People who know the least are going to be making the decisions and then trying to impose them. And that's been true. Did we just lose these guys? Can you hear me, Alicia?
I can hear you. We lost
Yeah, I can hear you.
They're coming. I think they got kicked backstage on this platform. So I heard everything that you said. And I think they probably did too. You just can't see them. And I know you've got 10 minutes left.
The other thing that I want to make sure that I say in this is we know that there is a specific racial fight that is part of this campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I have said repeatedly that this president is a racist, and that I would treat white nationalism as domestic terrorism, which is not really treated as now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we would use the Justice Department to go after it. If you look at how we've done our bank, for instance, we have done that from the bottom up with people from the community, hired from the community, and addressing the needs that people tell us they have, as opposed to coming in and trying to figure out what it is that will make the most money for us. We're really 100% mission driven. We'll never get the money back. It's over $1.1 billion at this point.
Yeah.
And the money can never come back to us. We can use it to make more loans, or we can give it away, but we can never get it back. And we think that this is the format that best serves the community, that has the most impact. You get to leverage the money and reuse the money, and we measure every single loan in terms of its impact on the community, in terms of jobs, businesses supported, housing units supported, all the different measures we can have.
Cool. Thank you. I think Nife is up with the next question, and they're on. You're just the focus of the screen.
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Yes. I'm so excited to see you guys again.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for sharing your political philosophy and some specifics around policy that you want to make waves on. Could you also share your top political and policy priorities for your first 100 days in office, and describe in detail how it will impact the Black community and how you will involve them in that process?
So first of all, I will appoint a formal commission on race on the first day. And that will be designed to retell the 400 plus years with an eye to solutions. And it's specifically designed to figure out the best way to come up with reparations. And it's part, I really do believe, Nife, that policy comes out of narrative. So we have to tell the story. I mean, I don't believe most people in California really know what Jim Crow was. And they also don't know who Barbara Lee was, or necessarily what she did, or a lot of the leadership that's gone on. So the idea would be, I have my own ideas about what the right thing to do is, but I want to do this to come out of the story of what happened, and to come out from the grassroots of people's reactions to, okay, since Black people got redlined for generations and haven't been able to build wealth the way other Americans have, what do we do about that? How do we change the education policy in the United States so that we ensure mobility and justice across? I'm talking about, tripling the Title I spending in the education policy to try and equalize between low income and middle income and high income communities in terms of spending per kid. So, to me, the first thing I would do is that I'm going to declare a state of emergency on the climate on day one, Nife. I'm going to do it. I'm going to insist that it be done from the standpoint of environmental justice. I am going to go to, that is who is going to be leading that effort, because I believe that's the only just way to do it, and that you need the moral high ground to do something that big. But I'm going to say we are going to do those things regardless of what Congress wants. Because when I listen to all the different proposals, we're going to undo a lot of stuff that Trump does on day one. We're going to spend months having a list of things. We're going to undo, the way ICE is run, we're going to undo that on day one. We're going to push for immigration reform on day one and treat people like human beings again. We are going to reestablish the United States of America as a just place that is value-driven and inclusive. And we are going to do that across the board aggressively on day one. A lot of the things that are going to have to happen from the standpoint of Congress, we're going to have to see what happens, because I'm a grassroots person. I'm going to be pushing really hard for huge turnout in 2020 and pushing hard to try and take back the Senate. I'm going to do that as a candidate. I'm going to do that as a non-candidate. That is absolutely critical. But determining where we are in the Senate is going to determine what we can actually accomplish in terms of legislation. So, but the things that I know we can do that we're going to start on from day one are the things that a president can do based on executive action, which are the kinds of actions that President Obama took. And I'm going to start those very aggressively on day one, including in those 3 areas that I just outlined to you, but also in a bunch of others, because basically Mr. Trump has, he has hollowed out the government. He has made it impossible for the, big swaths of the government to do its job, and rebuilding that is going to be important. And let me say, Nife, so is our reestablishing us as a moral leader in the world. And I'll say one other thing, which I have a different attitude about foreign policy than these people do. They spend hundreds of billions of dollars on military stuff. They spend 1/10 of that on education.
That's right.
It makes no sense to me. I don't know if you've ever had this conversation, but I wear this African belt. I wear this African belt because these friends of mine from California support schools across Africa for girls, because girls don't get educated as much as boys. And it turns out that when girls get educated, literally everything gets better. Literally, they save the world. That maybe the biggest thing we could do in the climate crisis is educate girls around the world. No one says that. Everyone thinks it's going to be like this technology, like we're going to come up with a new bug that's going to save us. No, it's actually might be just educate girls. So when I think about foreign policy on day one, what we get for educating girls around the world is gigantic. I wear the belt to remind myself it ain't about the next $12 billion destroyer that's never going into action. It's not about the next $700 billion that we're spending on macho militarism that matters. That maybe educating girls is the thing that changes the whole world. It doesn't cost $700 billion.
Oh, I heard that. Well, so on that note, we want you to have an opportunity to give us a closing statement. And this is an opportunity for you to tell the Action Fund why you are the best candidate for President of the United States.
Look, at this point, we need somebody who can beat Donald Trump. And I actually come from a family with a long history of social justice and racial justice. And I started by saying, I didn't do this to run for president. This is something that we've done for decades, and my mother did for decades, and my brother's done for decades, for those of you who know Jim. But at this point, we need somebody who can beat Donald Trump, and that means taking him on the economy and honestly kicking his ass because he's a liar. And in order to do that, I think you have to have the knowledge, experience, and expertise to do that on the stage, because he's going to lie a lot, and he's a talented liar. And I built a business. I know a lot more about economics than Donald Trump, and I can take him on, and I will do that. So the Democrat is going to have to win that argument, or Trump, as much as a loathsome a man as he is, can get reelected, because everybody knew he was a criminal before he got elected last time, and that he hated a lot of people based on race and ethnicity, and that he had, tons of women saying that he literally attacked them, and he still got elected. So the 2 things I think are important are, 1, to beat him on the economy, because that's what he's running on, and we can't lose that argument. And I believe I can take every single statement he makes and show that he's lying. And secondly, I think we need somebody who is going to do exactly what we're talking about here, which is we have a diverse party, thank God. We have a diverse country, thank God. That diverse party and that diverse country have to show up. I'm a grassroots person. We win by turnout across the board on November 3rd, 2020. We don't win by convincing Republicans that we're just like them. We're not like them at all. I want to turn the page on everything they've done. I think everything they've done is wrong, and literally wrong, not a matter of a bad judgment. I think morally wrong. What they're doing in money to Americans in terms of healthcare and education and a living wage and poison is deeply wrong. And we are going to have to take back this country for them, not by convincing Republicans we're just like them, but by convincing people who've given up on the system, who are overwhelmingly Democrats, who are young, Black, and brown, that this system can work for them and that we're going to make it work for them if it kills us. And that's what I've said to people, that I will do this unequivocally. I don't owe anyone anything. These corporations have an insatiable desire for money. And if for us to win, we are going to have to beat them. And it is not going to be meet in the middle, because there is no middle. And that's just where we are. So my statement to you is, we need a progressive. We need somebody with deep roots in terms of social and racial justice. We need someone who can beat Trump on the economy. I can do that. I mean, that's what look, I'm going to support whoever it is, but I'm telling you, I will kill myself to do those things, literally.
I really appreciate your time today, Tom. Thank you for having such a robust conversation with us about your vision for not just how to improve America, but really how to transform the lives of people in it. Yes. Thank you for your time today, and good luck in Nevada.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Just so you guys know, we are in second or third place in Nevada and South Carolina. And we think we can win these two states.
Well, let's go. Let's do it. Have a great rest of your day. Good luck. And we'll talk very soon.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a good one.